With intelligence at our disposal, the agency believes strongly that DCP Kyari is a member of a drug cartel that operates the Brazil-Ethiopia-Nigeria illicit drug pipeline. And he needs to answer questions that crop up in an ongoing drug case in which he is the principal actor. His failure to cooperate forced the hand of the agency, and that is the reason for this press briefing. His team had intercepted and arrested some traffickers that came into the country from Ethiopia with, according to him, 25 kilograms of cocaine. He proposed a drug deal where he and his team are to take 15 kilograms of the cocaine and leave the 10 kilograms for the prosecution of the suspects arrested with the illicit drug in Enugu. In the meantime, the purloined cocaine, that is the depleted cocaine, will be replaced with a dummy worth 15 kilograms. He asked the NDLEA officer to persuade men of the FCT command to play along as well. So we have a trove of intelligence, hard facts, from chats to photos and video, and a detailed transcript of the communication between him and the NDLEA officer. Having failed to honor the official invitation, NDLEA has no option but to declare DCP Abba Kyari of the Nigerian police wanted right from this very moment. I must say this publicly: we are not unaware of threats to the lives of NDLEA officers involved in this investigation, even as we continue to do our best to protect our officers and men in the line of duty.
Welcome back. Yes, that's what we're going to focus on. Mr. Kyari is now in the custody of the NDLEA. Mr. Seyi Adetayo joins us next. He's the former state security operative to weigh in on the matter. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, this particular scenario, well, I wonder what you think about it, but to a large extent, don't you think in the first instance it casts a shadow on the operations of security agencies in this country, about how they operate?
Oh, definitely. Most importantly, when we have an officer that was celebrated so much in terms of how much achievement that he made while he was still in active service, and that many were seen as a role model or example of a super cop, because that's what they call him. But it's quite unfortunate that at this moment we're talking about this. But this speaks volume to two things here. One, individual values, and a broken down system. And that is why while we're looking at this, we need to look at the foundation. You see, power without control is a problem, which is what I see as the cause of this. And if we don't begin to start addressing issues with power without control, they say absolute power corrupt absolutely. We will continue to have situations like this. The guy started so well, but the power he and his team got became so much, and then there was no control. It became so powerful that even at a point in time, I think during the IG portal, that it became so big that even the commissioner of police became so worried about the operations of his team. They will operate, that is the IRT team, the IGP monitoring team, and the SAS team. They will operate at state level in such a way that even the commissioner of police could not control or could not have a say. They will arrest people. Complaints will be made to commissioner of police. Commissioner of police will not be able to intervene on arrest made within their state command, and the suspect kept under himself in their state command, because the officers that are involved are receiving powers and are protected at the force headquarters level. And we saw this being controlled when the next IGP came in, and we've seen that the current IGP has consolidated on what the last IGP did. So we need to look at this not just from the level of the police, but from all other agencies, that internal control must not be sacrificed on a platter of being popular or you want to make quick wins, you are looking for media and hype to see that you are trying to work. We must be able to establish. And when we talk about internal control, the internal control that most of the agencies are using today, actually from the police. The police is the first agency that was created in Nigeria, and because the colonial legacy, and all these things were inherited from the British. And it is what the British gave the Nigerian police is what all other agencies are using, be it the military, they develop on it, the DSS, the NDLEA.
Yeah, Mr. Adetayo, when you say internal control, I mean, to some, it suggests that different services have checks and balances. So when you talk about this internal control, what does that exactly mean? What are you referring to?
You know, processes will not work on its own if people don't allow the process to work. Now, processes are properly defined. There are police regulations that regulate how police officers are supposed to behave. There are so many documents that have been issued, principles and policies within the Nigerian police that talks about hierarchy, a reporting line, and powers of at state command level, the responsibility of commissioner of police, responsibilities of area commanders, responsibilities of DPOs, responsibilities of AIGs. So when we are creating some departments, and the departments are to operate at different levels, they are supposed to be subjected to the controls at the level at which they are operating, so that those guidelines will be effectively be monitored, supervised, and enforced. That is the problem with this Abba Kyari affected him and affected his team. Remember, aftermath of the NSAS crisis, there were petitions that were written that evidence collected, items seized from armed robbers, from kidnappers, were being converted to personal use and some sold. And now, with what has happened now, it has confirmed it, because the cocaine we're speaking about right now is also an evidence that was collected after or seized after an operation. And the cocaine is now being converted now into money for personal use. So all those reports that we've been hearing, we find it difficult. I happen to be one of those people that were, saying that let's give this guy benefit of the doubt, because he has performed very well. We should not just because somebody has complained then we'll want to rubbish him. Let's investigate it further. But with all what we've seen in recent has shown that all these complaints, there is reason for us to go back and look at them. It's not just about the ones that the NDLEA has been able to bring out, not only about the ones that the FBI had reported. We need to now go back to all the petitions and complaints that has been written in the past concerning the operations of Abba Kyari and his team. And I talk about justice.
Yeah, Mr. Adetayo, this definitely suggests that we need to look inwards concerning all these other agencies, the items they confiscate from people or from suspects. What becomes of all of those? There has to be searchlights. The standards for holding security agencies accountable really needs to be a lot higher as expected in this country. For instance, I mean, speaking about this control, I thought he was supposed to be on suspension. Is this so lax that nobody was even watching to ensure that he stays within the leash? How do you think this plays out?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's about the control. You see, his indictment by FBI was so much politicized. Some traditional rulers were involved. They're trying to make case for him. This guy has done so well. So the guy was not really feeling the heat of the issue. And that's the reason why, because I can't really expect someone that is under the radar of the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation will still not be involved in a crime that has international dimension. Drug trafficking is international. Those that are involved they are cartels. And the cartels spread across countries within the regions where they are operating. And these people, one way or the other, they are on the watch list of either the FBI or other foreign, agencies and the DEA. The DEA are operating in almost all the areas where the U.S. embassies are. And they are working with local, agencies like the NDLEA in Nigeria. And I know there is that strong collaboration between the NDLEA and the USDA in Nigeria. And so for you to now get involved in things like this under this condition, that even there are issues between the IGP and the police commission over the outcome of the report. There are so much news out there, and some people are trying to dip their neck for you, and then you are still involved in this. That shows that this is about individual values.
Okay,
is definitely not something that just started now.
Well, perhaps that also puts a question mark on the quality of people that are employed into the security services, all of them across, about 9 or 13 of them. But Mr. Adeta, one question that comes to my mind in all of these is what makes security operatives vulnerable to this? Yes, you have talked about personal values. You've also talked about control. But are these anything to do with the welfare, the take home, the conditions of service that each of these people, of these systems operate, within which they operate, that makes their officers vulnerable? You also said it the other time that we need to look at all security agencies, all of them all together, including the NDLEA you probably are speaking to as well. So what, in your opinion, could have made these officers vulnerable within the system, within the powers that they have?
Okay, now, two things outside the things that I've mentioned. One is personnel security. That's all it's called, personnel security. And that is, those are systems put in place to ensure that the process of hiring, background checks, we call it vetting, and after vetting, when the process within which they will go through the orientation into the agency, and then by the time they start working, vetting is supposed to continue, and that's what is called continuous vetting. Now, these are legacies of the Nigerian police. Other agencies are following it, much more than the way the police, maybe because of the size of the police. But it's not something that we need to joke with, because police in other crimes, they are still doing it. But so the issue of personnel security is there. We are not following it. And what personnel security entails is that after 5 years, 10 years of every 5 years or 10 years, you go back and they revet these officers again, check their bank account, check their lifestyles, dip their life again, and see whether they are actually living beyond their means, or there are some things that are involved with that have not been open to the agency that those investigations will now bring out. It now helps you to now start weeding out the bad eggs within the system. We are no longer following it. Some agencies are still following, but they are not following the way they used to follow it before. That is one. Two, the recruitment process, the training process. Now, the whole essence of the trainings that are being, the programs of trainings for security agents is designed to ensure that you are modified to become a loyal citizen and a responsible citizen and a law enforcement officer, somebody who will frown at the law. Now, after this training, you are now brought into the system. It doesn't really matter whether your salary is the best in the world or it is in the lowest in the world. As long as internal controls are there and personnel security.
Mr. Adetayo, are you sure the take-home pay is not? It does not matter in this issue?
No, what I'm saying is this. See, there are several officers in our agencies. Are they all corrupt? Have you not met police officers that will tell you that they will call white white and tell you black is black, and yet they are not driving the best of cars? Because the system has gone through them. They allow the system to go through them and modify them. I worked in a system, and several other people like me are there that just stand, on the values that we all went through. And because even when you want to go outside those values, because there are checks and balances, internal control, will prevent you from being able to. Now, let me tell you something about DSS. Everybody is watching everybody in the DSS. If you start living extravagant life and start living beyond your means, doing something, one of your mates will report you. And when somebody reports you to be investigated, they will do checks and they will do background checks behind you. And before you know it, the person is already facing, disciplinary measures and is being kicked out. Those are internal measures put in place to ensure that everybody is being put, on their toes to do the right thing. I'm not saying that it is Uhuru in that agency, but I know the same thing is with the NDLEA. I've worked with several NDLEA officers. I can tell you that they are watching themselves. There are still some of them that are still corrupt, but it will help you to ensure that at least you have about 98, up to 98% of the officers that are upright. So those remaining 2% that are irredeemable, it gives you opportunity to be able to identify them and then start plucking them out. But when we allow the internal control to be destroyed, you start having like 98% to be corrupt and 2 that are upright, and they will not be able to make any difference.
So if I could do the calculation, 98% corrupt and 2% incorruptible, as it were. For the police, I mean, the population of the police is nearing 400,000, some say between 350, 370,000. So that would imply that over 300,000 are corrupt, coming from that analogy you gave. And
no, that's not what I said. You are trying to be the devil's advocate here.
No, I'm borrowing from the analogy.
I'm just saying that we should not get to a level where we will result into a situation where 98% will be corrupt and 2% will be upright.
So I'm painting that analogy now. I'm using figures now so people can understand well, and I'm using the Nigeria Police Force. So, I mean, if we give that figure, it paints the picture better. I'm not saying currently they are. I'm just using the analogy you gave. But the point here is, I mean, a lot of people wonder how easy it will be to begin to reverse these things. Because, I mean, the quantum, you talked about the DSS, NDLEA. I mean, the force is not as big as the police. The police is huge. You guys, I mean, the logo is an elephant, essentially, so it's big. So I wonder, how do we begin to reverse this? Because we have a huge population, from the ones in the offices, the ones on the streets. By the way, we have fantastic policemen, and I can say that because I've met them time and again. But how do we begin to reverse this, this internal control mechanism you talked about for an agency as huge as the police?
No, it starts with, respecting the hierarchy, respecting the structure, allowing the organogram to work the way it's supposed to. And thanks to the immediate past IGP, it's one of the things that he reversed when he came on board. And I know the reason why IGP Ringing did what they did, because they inherited some problem. He needed to make some quick wins, and then he set up the body, gave them so much power. But the power he gave them resulted into another problem. And there was so much complaints, even coming from the Commissioner of Police. So we must start by making state command to be a very strong institution, that nobody operating at a state command can go beyond the CP to get anything done. And the CP should devolve the power downward, such a way that the area commander becomes so powerful as well as his own, to be able to have all those processes, be able to do checks and balances, be able to do, sustain internal control, have the right kind of department at the area command, have the same kind of department at the divisional level, where officers, at the division can easily face, that process of scrutiny, inspection, like that. And, the IGP escort as well should be strengthened. It's just like a very small unit, and they are working, but it's like, trying to, take water with a cup from the ocean. The effect is not that much. But Nigerian police need to, one, revisit the police regulation. Go back into all the policies and look at it at how do we look at our current structure, the departments that we have. And I will give you an example. You see, now, there is no regulated uniform for the Nigerian police. It should start from there. Nigerian police uniform should be identical. That rule must be enforced. This is how a Nigerian police officer should appear. Not somebody sewing t-shirt. You see some people that are going to special force, they will go to barrack and go and buy t-shirt. They will not do, embroidery with special force. is wearing special force t-shirt. And then you see them sewing uniform for special force, even though they've not gone for that training. Even when you have gone for special forces training, but you are not correctly serving in the special force, while wearing the uniform of a special force, doing SPU work, doing MOPO work, working in the division, or doing a highway patrol, that is the uniform you are wearing. There is that loss of control. It must start from there. So that even the people will begin to identify who are the real police officer. And it must start from the division. The EPO should be held accountable at that level to ensure that the turnout of their men, their names are written. Go on Lagos Shagamu Benin Expressway. You will see the policemen on duty. They would deliberately put on an improvised bulletproof vest on their uniform to protect their name. Another one will go and wear an old uniform that the name has already removed. It is illegal for a police officer to turn out without his name properly written, and for the junior ones, their service number properly written. These are the small things. This must start from small things like this. When you begin to enforce this control, high up will begin to change and start turning things one by one.
And this particular instance you mentioned about uniform is actually big, because it's been said also that these officers actually have to pay for their uniforms, their boots, and the rest. So, I mean, clearly there's a lot of work we need to do. But let me take a detour quickly, because this case that the NDLEA is building is centered around exhibits, as it were, cocaine, 25 kilograms or what. And I think he has raised that question about what exactly happens to these exhibits. Because we see, you know, the police, we see the NDLEA, we see customs come up with all of those seizures, as it were. And, you know, there's always the photo ops. But the question is, what should happen to them? You know, customs comes up, says, you know, we've seized, you know, thousands of bags of, you know, contraband. NDLEA does the same. I mean, in this case, the case is built around it. So really, what happens to those exhibits after the photo ops? What should happen to them?
You see, that is part of the internal control. There are supposed to be, see, there are internal controls. See, police has one of the best regulation, the best internal control documents in Nigeria. It's about enforcing it. There are procedures for when seizures are being made. There are procedures to how seizures made are to be disposed of, through getting court order or getting certain approval for the contraband or the exhibit to be destroyed. And it will not be done until after the case has been disposed of. And if there's something that may be injurious, an order or so will be gotten for it to be disposed of, and it will be properly documented, properly returned. See, they have several documents which they use in, you know, documenting these things, and they do periodical returns. Monthly returns, quarterly returns, yearly returns. No, it's, you know, just of recent, there was a report as to the numbers of arms and ammunition that are missing within the covers of the Nigerian police. And if you flash back several years ago, there was a case of military officers during change, when we were doing the process of amnesty, that government was asking the Niger Delta militant to drop weapons, and they were giving them money, you know, to embrace amnesty. And there are people who are stealing weapons from the Nigerian Army Armory to sell to the Niger Delta militants, and they are now resubmitting Nigerian Army weapon to the Nigerian government, and were collecting money until the DSS did a sting operation and then arrested them. You know, it became a celebrated case. That is to show that it is not limited to the Nigerian police, but Nigerian Army.
As a matter of fact, this process of crime, remember, it was also a huge bone of contention with the EFCC, the former chairman of EFCC, as to what was going on with all of those scenarios, which is still perhaps still being attended to. But what do you see happening now that the NDLEA says we've got evidence to jail him? He's also wanted abroad. Is he going to stay here? Are we going to try him, hand him over? What do you see playing out, really?
Well, I think we just have to wait and see the best approach. Now, one agency is already handling it. The issues around because he's still a serving police officer. And within the interagencies relationship protocol, they should not ordinarily go and arrest a superior officer without first reaching into the agencies. And that is what the NDLEA has done, which the Nigerian police don't usually do. They will arrest people from other agencies without even consulting, and it usually leads to problems. But NDLEA had done the right thing. They tried to invite him because he was on suspension. He didn't come, and they reported to his agency. And then they went out to make an announcement, and the agency arrested him and brought him. Now, he's facing one now. The one he was facing, or he's still facing on the FBI, is an internal issue, which we expect now that the Nigerian police now should, as a matter of fact, decide his fate and decide his status as a police officer. Once that one is done, it allows the the NDLEA to now take action. It now allows the arm of the Nigerian police, which is Interpol, to now be able to work with the NDLEA to determine, because probably they must have issued an international arrest warrant on him by now, and be able to work and say, okay, this issue, should we allow him to go and answer to FBI? Maybe there are even more information, as FBI said, that they have on him, that will unearth so many things. Even while that one was going on, that is also important for government to now set up a special panel to now look at what are all the activities of this team, all the seizures they've made, the exhibits. They look at those records, look at the life of the people that are there, because the same people who are working with him were under a different commander. Tuji Disu was posted as the head of the IRT. So it means that even those who are working under him are still reporting to their former boss. Because that is exactly what it looks like is happening now. So they need to now start looking at all those officers that were involved with the Abba Kyari then, and then open up all these investigations. And not only that, other cases of the IGP monitoring team, cases relating to the SARS then, you need to look at it, because there were issues of exhibits, seizures made from armed robbers that were, disappeared overnight. Families complained that they even seized an hotel. They ran the hotel for several months or thereabouts, and probably sold some properties. I think the petition is there. It's in public domain about one of those allegations, against this people. So we need to look at this and let's start the process, one of healing and justice for those that have become victims, and the process also to show those who are serving that you can only run. You can never escape the law. No matter how long you try to hide, if you don't do your work as a police officer, as well as an NDLEA officer.
Okay, so then just to ask quickly about this situation now, my colleague already asked whether or not he should be extradited to the U.S. to face charges. But then you already raised the issue of him, the people who were underneath him answering questions or answering to him while it would seem that he was no longer the head there. About this particular one, do you think he was still serving while he was on suspension? Because this raid or this particular arrest was said to have been made just this year.
He was suspended last year, which means that he has been, stripped of all command responsibility. So someone on suspension is supposed to be home and waiting for the outcome of the panel setup to look at his case. He was not expected to even wear police uniform or even get involved, even enter police offices. So for him to be involved in this particular case shows that he was still, even in suspension, running operations with his boys that are reporting to another commander. That shows the extent, and the more reason why they need to now go deep into those who work with him and then start investigating them, the activities since, he was suspended, and then those that needed to be weeded out should be weeded out.
Let me ask you what this does for belief in our security agencies. What does this do for confidence that ordinary citizens should have in our security agencies?
The truth is that we cannot afford not to have confidence in our security agency. They are product of the society. The people that are serving there are from the society. The young ones that are going into recruitment are coming from the same society. We must continue to support them. We must continue to speak when we're supposed to speak. When we see things that are wrong, we should say it out. There is no perfect police system anywhere in the world. Even in the United States, there are extrajudicial killing, there are racial killing, there are profiling and the rest. And they are also still doing everything possible, and the society are still working in support to ensure that they try to remodel their police into what they want. And we must also not give up on our own security agency as well. We must give them support, provide necessary assistance, provide information, support them when they need to make arrests. And when we see things that are going wrong, we speak out, we report to the right authority, having the trust that they will act. And I'm sure this current IGP will act when such information gets to them.
Mr. Seyi Adetaya, we have to thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. He's a former operative of the DSS. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning.
Thank you so much.